In today's video, we're going to dive into one-on-ones, these vital moments between you and your team that are critical to both your own personal success and your team's success. And yet, one-on-ones are so often misunderstood. I find this in so many workshops where I work with managers and their one-to-ones are not doing the job for them that they could do. Now, this video is a little bit different. I recently was working in my Leaders Lab group coaching program and was asked by several people if they could share the video on one-on-ones that's in that program. And then I thought, wow, if it's interesting for them to share with the managers that they manage, maybe I should share it with all of you. This is a tutorial in which you will learn the key pitfalls that managers fall into when it comes to one-to-ones, how to have a gold standard one-to-one, and the role that you would have in doing that. There are some tools and templates to help you get started. And also, I give you a plan of action on how to reset your one-to-ones for success. If this is something that you think would help you, watch away. Welcome to this lesson. We're going to be exploring one-to-ones. So this module 3, is all about team alignment. I want to remind you about the CAT framework. It's a framework that helps people work better together. CAT is a philosophy and a framework for working better together, and it stands for clarity, alignment, and trust. So clarity is about your vision and your values and your goals and objectives, where you're going, what you're doing. It's about, as a leader, having clarity about your people, who they are, what's important to them, what's their development areas for development. And it's about having clarity about how you work. The alignment side, so once you have clear about where you're going, what the plan is, the challenge is obviously to align with others. And the alignment focuses are the individuals in your team, the stakeholders that you work with, and the ways of communication and collaboration that you may have, and being really intentional in meetings. If you get these things right, you automatically find that your plans become more successful. The oil in the engine, as you remember, is trust. And that comes about knowing yourself as an individual and how you are at your best with other people and maybe when you're not. And it's about quality communication that builds trust. And it's about being a coach. Now, why one-to-ones are so important? It is the key alignment moments between you and your direct reports, your team, as individuals. And it's where CAT really comes alive, should I say. And that's why it's just so important for you. And yet, they are often misunderstood and do not serve the job that potentially they could for you as a leader. I've found over all the years I've been working with managers and leaders and talking about one-to-ones, there are 3 key pitfalls that people fall into. The first is they're ad hoc, they're not prioritized, and they're frequently rescheduled. And this is normally because the priority is going on to the work. And as a consequence, once you miss one, once you miss 2, actually you can start to find that you are not actually talking with your team members as often as you think you do, or think you do, and as you could. And that's important because especially when your team are remote from you, these focused moments of communication become disproportionately important because a lot can happen in a week to 2 weeks, can't it? The second is that the agenda focuses more on your needs and your agenda versus theirs. And this is a very common issue that I see. You go in with a list of things you want to talk about, and as a consequence what is important to them is often not understood by the manager, and for the direct report it can often be quite difficult to say there is something I really want us to talk about when the direction of travel appears to be moving in a very different direction. You have the power, and as a consequence people will respond to you. The third one is that people think this person is too experienced and doesn't need your help because they're focusing on their expertise elements of the job and maybe not the other things as a leader that you could do. What this often leads to in one-to-ones, when managers dig into what is going on, is what I call update hell. That actually a one-to-one becomes the direct report updating you on everything that has been going on. So your needs are met, but your team members' needs may not be met because they already know this information. And a lot of the bandwidth and time is taken up with the transfer of that information. Now, I'm not saying that you can't have a meeting with your direct report to be updated on a particular project or challenge, but that it should not be confused with what a one-to-one is all about. So one-to-ones are the most important moment of alignment between you and your team members. And I think there are a number of key principles that if you can adopt, make all the difference. So the first is it's their one-to-one, not yours. So it's their one-to-one, their time with you to get your support and what they want to talk about. It should be consistent, scheduled meeting. And if you're working remotely from each other, it is manageable, I would really encourage a weekly catch-up, bi-weekly at the absolute most. Once you go beyond that, things change very fast. And I think you miss the kind of rhythm that can really help you empower that person to do their best work. Time-wise, I think you're talking about short, 25 up to about 45 minutes. Occasionally you may go longer. But it's actually a short, focused conversation about what they want to talk about. And when I see these implemented well and consistently, that's one of the big changes from people often going from quite long meetings with very full agendas to just short, focused on their team conversations, but done very consistently. And your role is to support, unblock, and coach. So these should become the heartbeat of how you lead your team. It's that vital. You just don't want to miss them. And I promise you, they will save you time. What often happens is that you get caught in ad hoc anytime communication, which is difficult because your brain is constantly switching from one topic to another topic. And what you often find with good one-to-ones, it's just consistent, focused communication. So you find over time the power of 80-20. Once you've got into the rhythm of them, they focus conversations, things get solved, people are empowered, you have helped somebody do their job better, and a lot of that ad hoc noise kind of calms down. They're also absolutely critical in trust building so that you feel more comfortable to leave a person and get on, because you know when they're going to come back and talk to you, and you know they will come back and talk to you if they have any issues. So the mindset you are adopting in your one-to-ones is an empowering mindset. You've got to think that you're a guide, you're an unblocker, and you're a coach. That is your role within the meeting. And if you take that mindset and adopt those roles, you're much more less likely to suck the agenda onto your needs, because these all focus on the individuals. Now, the best way to do that is that the first question I would always say in a one-to-one from you should be, what do you want to focus on today? Because this automatically, after your pleasantries obviously, focuses the conversation on what the individual wants to talk about. Now, sometimes this can be quite unnerving for the individual, but as soon as they get into the rhythm of it, they know this is their time with you. Here I share an ideal agenda, but there is no fixed format for a one-to-one, and you are going to have to find what works best for you and your team. But I would always start with a bit of the pleasantries. Ask that question, what do they want to focus on? And then the meat of the meeting would be on their focused topic. And in there, you normally find that these are not conversations in isolation. That because you're doing them little and often, there's often you just find an update on the progress since the last one-to-one on this topic, just because you're talking about it. It's an opportunity at this point for feedback, and it's also a coaching opportunity. That's your role as whatever this topic is. Sometimes people just want to share a problem with you, and they just want to feel support. And that's absolutely fine, because that is their time. But a great action at the end is asking the questions so that you align on the priorities for the coming week. So what are your priorities for the coming week would be the question, obviously. And what support do they need from you? If you finish on these two areas, you will know what their priorities are, and you can, as a result, check that that's what you expect. But what it's really doing is encouraging action-orientated accountability, and you're going to know if you are needed. So again, this intentionality and transparency helps you manage your time, because you can assess how important that issue is and how much time you are going to have to give to that individual to support them, if at all. The other thing about really getting into a strong rhythm on one-to-ones, it makes your performance management and appraisal system much, much easier. And I find that if you say you're having these one-to-ones at a weekly level, all you do at certain times of the year is just extend one of them, of the series, to focus on this particular thing. So the annual review, annually you're obviously fitting in an annual review, performance review, and objective setting. So that may well form part of this sequence. But quarterly, remembering this focus on the quarter, I think it's highly valuable to stop and assess the quarter in the round, just see what their achievements are, what they've learned from it, are there any learnings for the coming quarter that they want to do differently, and having that point of alignment on the quarter. But then looking forward, making sure that you're aligned on the forward quarter objectives and the priorities. So that's an opportunity. That meeting may be a little longer. And then the weekly and bi-weekly ones is just the regular one-to-one with the check-in and support as appropriate. The benefit of all of this is that with all these discussions, the performance management system, or the appraisal, should be a no surprise zone. You don't want it to be a surprise, because you maintain that clarity, alignment, and as I said, it builds trust over time. So the challenge for managers is managing the balance of these critical elements of the one-to-one. So the work and productivity, the what you're working on, building the relationship, and coaching and developing. So each quarter it allows you to look and think, where has the bulk of our conversation been? Where does it need to be going forward? And just recognizing these different roles allows you to check that you're spending adequate time on all three of these vital parts. The key is you have to find your own rhythm and routine to how you run these. You want to create a system which is just, this is the way I and we do it here. And if you ask any of your team, they would know that that is the way we do it. This is our rhythm and routine with regard to one-to-ones. A couple of tips that I've seen work well. The absolute number one is you've got to schedule and stick to them. So getting them in the diary and sticking to them. Now, I've had clients that have done different things. The batch option is one. They have a one-to-one day or half day, or they kind of group them up depending on their teams, and they do them like straight through at half an hour each. These are sometimes face-to-face in the office, and they are sometimes on Teams or Zoom. But that is one way to get in the mindset and just move all the way through them. As I said, the time, 25 to 45 minutes, depending on the need of the individual. You know, somebody who's new, you may be giving a little bit more time to. But the key is to be consistent. And also another mindset that I think is quite good is that your direct report can cancel or postpone because it's their one-to-one. But you really work hard at sticking with it. And if by any chance you do, even better, try and bring them forward. Right, can we do it a bit earlier rather than later? Because what you find is once you postpone, time slides and you can lose them. Just remember that in that intentional rigor, you need your routine to keep it going. The second thing to think about in how you work them, and the link back to our last module is about effective communication, is at the heart of a good one-to-one. So these are perfect times to use your communication superpowers that we're all now super aware of. So those open questions, listening actively, using closed questions and summaries. Brilliant time to work on those skills and check that's the role you're playing, because the more you do that, you will naturally be more of a guide, an unblocker, and a coach. and also defaulting to coaching as opposed to solving the problem for the individual when they share that problem for you. So that we don't want to take the work on, do we? We want to empower our team. So the Grow Coaching Framework is a really great way of doing that. Another thing you might want to think about is a collaborative documentation, which brings clarity, and you can have as a shared doc, one shared working doc owned by the individual, because you do need to keep notes in some way of what's being said, and it needs to be easy access. Again, this makes your performance management much, much easier. And as a result, you get one version of the truth as opposed to what you wrote in your notebook and what they wrote in theirs. And over time, that may sound quite different. So I'd recommend, I'm going to share this with you, it might be something you want to explore with your team. Owned by your direct report, you work off one shared document, and at the end of the quarter, you finish and start again. One of the really great things about doing it this way is that you can attach the links for all your key documentation. So your OKRs or your objectives, the performance management, the appraisal, the development plan, you can just do links. And what happens when you do this is you're much more likely to use this documentation regularly because it's just become so easy to access. At this stage, I would like you to think about, if you were scoring your one-to-ones out of 10, what would they be? And if you're not at a 8, 9, 10, I want you to think about how could you optimize them. And by far the best way, if you are changing this, is to think relaunch. And I would start by getting feedback from your team, because it's such a vital moment to get right. Just being open and saying, I'm really thinking about how to optimize these moments. I've had some thoughts, but I'm interested in yours. Find out what they say. Be clear if you are changing the way in which you've run them in some way, that you share your expectations going forward. So in particular, this shift, if you feel like actually this is my one-to-one with them and I need to swap it over, you need to share your expectations going forward of what it is you want them to do as a result, and then schedule the meetings and stick to them. But it does need nurturing. It's not perfect straight away. So reviewing together and seeing how it's working for each other and getting feedback often normally takes about 12 weeks, I would say, until people have moved from one way of working to a different way of working. But my clients that have really shifted over would say this is without doubt one of the most powerful things they have done to improve the leadership of their team. So if this is you, this is a very simple plan that can get you on track. I hope you found that useful. If you have any questions on any of this, please put them in the comments. I will be around to answer them. There is a link to the team meeting template also below. And if you have found this useful, please share it with a colleague who you think would find it helpful. And also, if you could like, subscribe and ring the bell so that you will be reminded of each video that I release. And I'd be very grateful, as it helps other people, managers like yourself, find this channel. Okay, until next time, take care.